So how do you continually communicate what they're in it for? Because I guess, a lot of people become disparaged in any business, but certainly in, if they're nurses or police. I was with a policeman the other day who was just talking literally about the fact that, they're just so fed up with the time spent wasted on stuff that wasn't really what they signed up for in the first place.
Yeah.
How do you communicate that vision, that message constantly to people so that they're reminded of what Simplyhealth is here, what their mantra's about?
Well, it's quite funny. You just used the word constantly.
Yeah.
Absolutely constantly. And, it is known in the organisation. I will not tolerate mis-selling. I will not tolerate customer abuse. I will not tolerate staff abuse by customers, actually. That's equally important because that tells staff they have a value in this process as well. But actually what we're here for is to inspire people towards better health, and that's our job, and we keep going at it. And, one of the things, and I bet what comes across from this is, this is airy-fairy stuff, and what about managing the spreadsheets and the whatever? Well, we've made 11 straight years of profits and growth, and we're 3 times the size we were 11 years ago since I first took up the challenge. I know every number in this organisation upside down and backwards, and I make it my duty to be able to really understand the analysis of everything that's going on, because without that, my soft side message, as it's called by many, has no substance.
Yeah.
And people need the confidence to understand that not only am I giving out that message, but I'm backing it up with resource, and that there's a sustainable future that's going to come as a consequence, because they need to believe in it.
Yeah.
They need to feel it's not built on sand or this month's fashion.
Well, no, and it's the future, isn't it? I mean, I think the thing that excites me about, trying to deliver better customer service day in, day out is that, happy clients stay. They're cheaper to keep than winning, than keep acquiring new clients. The relationship gets better, and so they're less maintenance than constantly winning clients. And you can't limit the impact that it has on your reputation and your brand by delivering, excellent customer service. So it has to be, if you're going to be in a competitive market like yours, because yours and mine are both incredibly competitive markets, aren't they?
Yeah.
Surely customer service becomes the thing that makes you profitable.
Well, we're basing our entire USP on excellent personal service, because actually there are deeper pockets than ours out there that can replicate our machines and our products and our buildings and our whatever. But actually to replicate a culture is incredibly difficult. And even those that try for a few months or even years, no, it doesn't get anywhere. This is lifetime's work, really. Because it takes people time to believe that what you're doing is going to remain consistent, and then sign up. And once you get that goodwill signed up, then you begin to get the energy of the enterprise, and it then begins to travel along. And it's that's a lot of effort, and it needs to be maintained as well.
There's a lot of attention in the media at the moment about the UK and customer service. There's a television programme on this week on Channel 4 about retail.
Michelle Roux's also putting some kids through their paces.
And I recently wrote a blog about the fact that I think customer service should become a standard GCSE and a standard module in every degree, because I believe that no matter what job we go into, we're going to have to serve a client and experience customer service.
Yeah.
The light's on it. What do you think will, take, what state do you think we're in? I mean, realistically, are we that bad at the moment?
We are very certainly not good. How does that help? Then the thing is that what you notice is how outstanding it is when it's reasonably good.
Yeah. And
that's really noticeable. And so there are some organisations who really, you just walk in and it feels different. And I'm going to cite John Lewis as an organisation where it's not that they don't make mistakes, but actually the way it's fixed, the way you're approached, the whole effort that goes into addressing you. There's courtesy, there's a smartness, there's a presentation which actually makes you feel valued. And I think what we've what we've gotten into, and it's as a result of price beating everything. You know, this is our race to the floor to get the lowest priced commodity out there, which I think is a shame. Is that anything that was about enhancing the experience is coming second to the cost of retail at the moment. When it doesn't, you know, I'm not talking about high street retail. I'm talking about moving goods to the customer.
Yeah. Do you think that's the same in the public sector? Do you think we've become so cost-driven in the public sector that we're driving that as a commodity as opposed to really caring about people?
Actually, I would argue we've become over-regulated in almost every area of life. And your policeman, and I know my goddaughter who's a nurse, and a number of people who just want to get on with the job of nursing or policing or whatever else, who are feeling hidebound by the paperwork that goes with it, the administration, the rules which make just about everything unacceptable. And I don't know how, but we've got to engineer our way backwards out of this. I must say, actually, one of the jobs of leadership for me, which requires great courage, is when you're in an environment which is hugely regulated and dominated perhaps by a government body or something else, you've actually got to protect, as the leader, what your organisation is there for, and not turn it into an administration unit that just serves the purpose of the regulator, whether that's a hospital or a local council or whatever else. Because it's too easy with all the rules and regulations to forget that actually you are there to serve the customer. And I think what a lot of people feel in the workplace is that they've got no freedom of movement, right or left, to serve well. They just have to follow a set of rules, because if they don't, they're going to be chastised in some way. And we've got to get back to the point where there's a bit more freedom than that. And there will be mistakes, but actually life has got risks in it, and you can't engineer them all out.
I'm going to wrap up in a minute, but there's just an observation that I'd like to make about you, is that you seem to care quite a lot about a lot of things, in terms of community. We talked about fish.
Yeah.
About, you know, do you think that if more CEOs, and I'm making a judgment, and I'm sure they're, you know, I don't know very many CEOs, do you think as many of them are aware and as attached to the rest of the world, and are, I mean, you obviously are financially focused, but it's not your main goal.
No, it's not.
Do you think we would be in a better position if we had more emotionally involved people heading up our organisations? I just want to make one remark as well before you answer that. I just thinking about the recent cases of a couple of CEOs, banking CEOs, that have taken great big bonuses in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Now, whether they were due them or not, I would have personally not put up with the bad press and made a stance myself. They're already very wealthy people.
Yeah.
Do they need the money? They know the impact it was going to have on the media. Wouldn't it have been braver to just refuse that quietly and ask for it much later on when they're, you know, when the banking system was in a better place to pay out the bonus? Wouldn't that have been more ethical and more in touch with the rest of the world in terms of opinion? And if we, you know, if there were, I'm not saying that you would have made a different decision. I think I know you well enough to know that you wouldn't have accepted that.
Correct.
Do you think it would make a difference to the country's future from a PLC perspective if we had more emotionally in touch people?
I think you're pushing water upstream with that one, in that I think we have some very good CEOs as leaders. I think some of what pushes their agenda needs to be reframed. So, for example, in a PLC, they've had their agenda push with short-term returns and capital appreciation for years, such that now that's all people know is growth and quarter-on-quarter profits and returns. And actually, if you go back a few decades, perhaps to a time when more businesses were owned with somebody's name over the front door, they knew that it was about pride, it was about reputation, it was about your employees, it was about the communities that you worked in, and that business's role was a wider role than the narrow definition that profit gives a business. Now, that's not to say that it's not a tougher job today in a very competitive world, but actually every organisation can make a massive impact by changing by only a small percentage what it does for its communities, for its staff. And I believe it's the organisations who do that that will be the sustainable ones for the future. I really do. The answer to your banking question is no, those bonuses shouldn't be taken, and it is not yet time to forgive the banks in spite of what might be said. No. There are a lot of people suffering as a consequence of ineptitude, banks and government. It's not good enough. It's not good enough.
Given what you've said about CEOs and banking, do you think that this may just be an observation again, but I've noticed a stepping stone tends to be FD to CEO often.
I think narrow casting, and I think you can get good CEOs for anywhere. I think, is there a passion in their heart? Do they understand? I think it's called level 5 leadership, but I've never actually read a book on leadership or anything about it. But this is about an understanding of the way you're impacting on the human beings and the environment around you, and the motivations that you're able to put into an organisation. And we need more CEOs who are acutely aware of their impact on others, and with some courage to support the purpose of their organisation, sometimes against the interests of some of their stakeholders. And they're a rare breed.
So if somebody in the future asks you to be a chairman of one or two organisations at some point in your dotage.
Yes, thank you. Not far now.
That'd be an interesting thing, won't it, when you come to interview people for CEO positions? A,
that, and B, I wouldn't, if I were lucky enough to be offered, accept anything where I didn't feel the company were making a pretty substantial contribution as well as doing its business.
That's brilliant.
Which may leave me without for a while, but that's okay too.
So one last question, because we're going to wrap up, and I just want to get your final advice to people who might be watching this podcast. This podcast gets watched by our clients who are and prospects who are a mixture of startup companies right up to some of the UK's largest brands. And companies have been going through an interesting time over the last 2 or 3 years. What would you say to a CEO or a managing director of any size organisation that is really struggling to really drum this message about delivering great service to clients? What would be the quickest, most effective thing that they could do in their organisation to make a difference straight away?
Your repeated actions are what get believed by your staff or not. So example, message, and don't depart from that. The smallest departure, you get a free bottle of wine from a happy client, put it into the staff thing. Do not give yourself advantage, don't set yourself apart. Be part of that team, carry the flag, and just push your energy into what matters for you. And the staff that believe that and it matters to them will follow. And I think it's really interesting. As a single person, you can make virtually no difference whatsoever. You get your business behind you, and the power of that is a magnification of what you hope for many, many times.
That's brilliant, Des. Thank you so much
it's a pleasure.
For all of that. And if people have questions that they particularly want to ask, obviously they might tweet them through to us.
Yes, I've been on Twitter once. I have. And the only thing I got was a Russian woman who asked if I wanted to see her bottom. So I haven't, well, my wife came along and switched it off. So that was that.
So if we get questions, you're happy to answer them if I fire them over to you, yeah?
I guess. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks, Des.
Okay, bye.